What's up, everybody? This is Michael in the wee hours of the dead of night on the graveyard shift. Getting ready for a hurricane coming, folks. People are freaking out already. I went to the grocery store earlier today, actually, and like all the beer and the pizza and the toilet paper, all the good stuff is gone already, flying off the shelf. So be sure you get to the grocery store and fight all those crazy people and get what's left. Quite frankly, before the weekend gets here. Okay, moving right along, folks. Is it the weekend yet? I wish it was. It's not even Friday. It's only Thursday. But anywho, I digress. The answer to the previous trivia question was, of course, the comedy duo of Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Let me tell you something about these two. The duo of Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin were part of an era that grew out of the mid to late 1940s. That started with very humble beginnings, really doing slapstick comedy, vaudeville type performances, and really ratty kind of nightclubs. And this eventually would lead into comedy radio programs. Remember, this is the 40s, right? So this is the era of kind of like the fireside chat. Remember that from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, how he would connect with people in a very effective manner by using the radio. Not everybody had TVs like the 60s and so forth. So this is the era of like the fireside chat and the radio, when the radio was very popular. Jerry Lewis was doing a lip syncing routine. Gosh, you can imagine. And Dean Martin was a simple nightclub singer. And when these two met, by happenstance, I think one was kind of chosen to fill in for somebody else and so forth, and they met by happenstance. They did not like each other. And I mention that factor because it's always fascinating to me how really successful duos or groups that start out and that become huge, they usually don't like each other. And this is true in like comedy duos, entertainment, rock bands, for instance, okay? Entrepreneurs, you remember Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, these people did not like each other when they first met, but they went on to be very huge and hook into something that really worked. I've always been fascinated with that correlation. Anyways, I digress just a little more. When they hooked up as a duo, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, they would eventually lock down a stand-up and in-person comedy routine that became very popular in the area where they were at. And this was enough to get them regular bookings at places like Atlantic City's 500 Club, the New York City's Copacabana Club, right? These are pretty big places at the time for stand-up shticks, for stand-up routine, right? When network radio series productions, which became very, very popular, like NBC's, for instance, when this era kind of began to take over, they naturally made this transition. And this era is what eventually would lead them to notice on a large scale and subsequently make the transition to the silver screen. So these two were part of these growing kind of waves of entertainment. You know, they went from vaudeville, stand-up routines, very successful into radio, and then made the transition into the silver screen. They were both eager at that point in time, quite frankly, to get out of New York City. Now, the duo of Martin and Lewis getting into movies would embark upon making 16 comedy films from 1949, starting with My Friend Irma, which was the focus of the trivia question, to their eventual breakup in 1956. That's an incredible run with one type of category of movie, comedy. Okay, 16 movies. They were just cranking them out in Hollywood, and this is when Hollywood was really kind of getting to that point, quite frankly, coming into its own kind of a area out on the West Coast. Now, by that time, by 1956, their routine had run its course, and they were both, quite frank, they were tired of it at the time, and so was everybody else. Quite really, it wasn't working anymore. So the breakup of the duo was really kind of ugly and was well publicized in newspapers. They were both kind of tired of each other, wanted to move on, wanted to do other things, right? Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis. Now, to their credit, this is an interesting part of this story. Check this out. To their credit, and one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is when they made the transition to movies, with the assistance of like lawyers and so forth, they were able to lock down one of the sweetest and most lucrative deals in Hollywood at the time, where they both received $75,000 between the two of them for their films. Now, you do the math. They did 16 films. This is the 1940s into the 50s, right? They had also had complete control of their club records, radio, and television appearances. And because of this, because they were able to secure all this and lock down this kind of a sweet deal at the time. They made millions of dollars in the 1940s and 50s, and I don't think a lot of people realize that about these two. So they were very, very successful at what they did, and they were very savvy and smart too to the whole business aspect of things, quite frankly. Absolutely. Now, after their breakup, Martin's career reached new heights as kind of a crooner of sorts, and he was with Capitol Records. He's a very famous singer, made a lot of albums. He also went on to act in other movies, other more serious roles. Dean Martin has made some pretty famous movies. And he was also a member, if you recall, which most people familiarize him with, of the famous Rat Pack, right, with Sammy Davis Jr. I almost said Sammy Hagar. Not Sammy Hagar. Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra, the Rat Pack, of course, of Las Vegas. That's what I'm talking about. Then he had his own show on TV from 1965 to 1974, and that's kind of a pinnacle when you get your own show, especially for that long. That's almost a 10-year run. Dean Martin Show. Very famous show. Kind of a variety of sorts, if you will. Jerry Lewis, on the other hand, remained with comedy, remained with his spiel, held on to that, and he was with Paramount Pictures. At one point, he was Paramount's biggest star. And this, of course, was the era of things like The Nutty Professor and so forth, some of his bigger movies. I'll tell you also, just on a side note, if you ever want to catch a really good movie with Jerry Lewis, there's a movie he made with Robert De Niro. It's about a stand-up comic. I forget the name of it, but check out Jerry Lewis, Robert De Niro. It's a great movie. It's one of his more serious roles, and that was later on in his career. Jerry Lewis, of course, was also a huge philanthropist. Most notably, with people are most familiar with the name Jerry Lewis, is his Easter weekend Muscular Dystrophy Association telethon, which runs the whole weekend to raise money for muscular dystrophy. And he did that up until 2010. He did that for many, many years. Dean Martin died in 1995. And Jerry Lewis lived until 2017, just recently died. Dean Martin probably checked out early. He was a heavy drinker. He was known to always have a drink in his hand. And of course, like I said, Jerry Lewis lived until 2017. You can pick up any of their movies that they made, the 16 of their comedy movies, and any of the stuff that they did thereafter in the bargain bin on Amazon if you want to get the whole collection. And it would be a good weekend to do that too. When the rain comes, you're going to be locked inside with cabin fever. Get some good comedy movies going on. That's what I'm talking about. All right, folks, let's keep on trucking and get to the weekend. Remember, it's only Thursday. Got a few more days, so let's just keep on moving, folks. Keep on trucking. Keep on moving forward. For September 29th, here we go, brand new trivia question. Following factors like the housing bubble and the mortgage crisis, the stock market crashes hard on this day in 2008, further escalating this event that would last well into 2009, and most people didn't think it was so great. Good luck, folks. Get to the grocery store. Get all that good stuff. Peace out.